Carol Matthews stood at the window of her office aboard the Galactic Council station, watching the strange purple and blue lights of distant nebulas swirl in the darkness of space. As Earth's chief diplomat to the Council of Worlds, she had spent the last 3 years learning about the many alien species that made up galactic society. But today, she had learned something that changed everything she thought she knew about these advanced civilizations. The discovery happened during what should have been a boring council meeting about military protocols. Carol had been half listening to the Zixtarian representative, Ambassador Catal, drone on about their empire's superior warships. The tall, gray-skinned alien was showing off technical specifications that made Earth's best ships look like toys. And that is why, Catal had said with a smug expression on his face, the Zixtarian Empire remains the strongest military force in known space. Our direct approach to warfare has never failed. That's when Carol noticed something odd in his choice of words. "Excuse me, Ambassador Catal," she had interrupted, "but what do you mean by direct approach?" The alien blinked his large, silver eyes. "We build the most powerful ships, we gather them in large numbers, and we move forward until the enemy surrenders or is destroyed. Is there another way?" The chamber had gone quiet. Carol looked around at the representatives of 30 different species, all of them watching her with curiosity. She stood up, her heart beating faster as she realized what this meant. "In human history," she began, "we have thousands of years of military philosophy. Sun Tzu taught us that supreme excellence consists of breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. Clausewitz showed us that war is the continuation of politics by other means. We learned that deception, strategy, and indirect approaches often succeed where brute force fails." The council chamber erupted in confused murmurs. A blue-skinned Meridian stood up, his antenna twitching. "What purpose does philosophy serve in warfare? The strongest weapons win. This is universal truth." Carol grabbed her tablet and quickly pulled up historical records. "Let me show you something from Earth's history. In 1940, a military force with superior weapons and technology invaded a small island nation called Britain. They had more planes, more bombs, and better equipment. But they lost. Does anyone want to know why?" The alien representatives leaned forward, their expressions a mix of doubt and curiosity. Even Kittel stopped looking smug and started paying attention. "They lost because the defenders used strategy. They created a complex web of radar stations. They divided their forces cleverly. They fed false information to the enemy. They studied weather patterns and used them to their advantage. The smaller force won because they fought smarter, not harder." Ambassador Kittel's gray skin turned a darker shade, a sign of agitation in his species. "You speak of tricks and games. True warfare is about honor and direct confrontation." Carol smiled. "Then perhaps you'd be interested in hearing about Admiral Yi Sun-sin, who defeated a fleet of 133 ships with just 13 vessels of his own. Or about Hannibal crossing the Alps to attack from an unexpected direction. Or about the Battle of Thermopylae, where 300 soldiers held off an army of thousands." The council chamber had never been so quiet. Carol could see the impact of her words on the alien representatives. Some were typing furiously on their devices, probably searching through human historical records. Others were whispering to their assistants. A small, insect-like Xatrian raised one of its 4 hands. "If what you say is true, why have humans not conquered more worlds with this philosophy?" "Because philosophy taught us something else too," Carol explained. "It taught us that the greatest victory is the battle not fought, that wisdom and restraint are as important as strength. Our philosophers of war also taught us about just war theory, about fighting only when necessary, and about the importance of building peace." That's when the shouting started. Some council members were demanding immediate access to human military histories. Others were calling it primitive nonsense. A few were suggesting that humans might be more dangerous than anyone had suspected. Now, hours later, Carol stood in her office, thinking about what had happened. Her comm unit beeped, displaying an urgent message from Earth Command. Long-range sensors had detected unusual movements in the Zixtarian fleet. They were conducting exercises, unusually close to human space. She wasn't surprised. Tal's reaction in the council chamber had told her everything she needed to know. The Zixtarians, proud of their military might, felt threatened by the idea that their approach to warfare might be flawed. Their exercises were probably a show of force, meant to intimidate. What they didn't understand was that human military philosophy had prepared Earth for this too. Even now, she knew that Earth's defense forces would be implementing plans developed through centuries of strategic thinking. The Zixtarians might have bigger ships and stronger weapons, but humans had something they didn't: the combined wisdom of countless generals, admirals, and strategists who had studied war not just as a contest of strength, but as a complex dance of minds. Carol turned away from the window and began preparing her next council speech. She needed to convince the neutral races that humanity's understanding of warfare might be crucial for maintaining peace in the galaxy. As she worked, she remembered something else Sun Tzu had written: "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles." The problem was, until today, no one in the Council of Worlds had ever really thought about knowing their enemy. They had never needed to. But humans had been thinking about it for thousands of years, and now that knowledge might be the key to preventing a war, or winning one if it couldn't be prevented. As the artificial day cycle of the station began to dim, Carol received another message. This one was from the Meridian representative, requesting a private meeting to discuss human military history. Then another message came from the Zatrians, asking about something called guerrilla warfare, and another from the Centaurians about psychological warfare tactics. She smiled. Maybe there was hope after all. If she could get enough council races interested in human military philosophy, they might be able to counter the Zixtarians' influence. And if war did come, at least Earth wouldn't be fighting alone. Carol opened a channel to Earth Command. "This is Ambassador Matthews," she said. "Tell the Defense Forces to begin implementing Protocol Omega-7 and send me everything we have on defensive warfare strategies. I think some of our new friends might be very interested in learning about the art of defense in depth." The next few weeks would be crucial. Either humanity would help usher in a new era of strategic thinking in galactic warfare, or they would have to prove the value of their military philosophy the hard way. Either way, the galaxy was about to learn that there was much more to warfare than simply having the biggest ships and the strongest weapons. As she prepared for what was to come, Carol remembered one last quote from Sun Tzu: "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." She hoped the Council of Worlds was ready to learn this lesson. The future of the galaxy might depend on it. Lieutenant Commander Paul Harrison stood in the dimly lit command center of Earth Defense Station Beta, studying the holographic display of Zixtarian fleet movements. The alien ships glowed as red dots against the black backdrop of space, and their pattern was troubling. Over the past 3 weeks, more and more vessels had gathered at the edge of human space, all under the excuse of routine exercises. "They're not even trying to hide it anymore," said Sandra Miller, Earth's chief intelligence officer, as she walked into the room. Her usual neat uniform looked wrinkled, suggesting she'd been working through the night. "Our deep space sensors picked up another 50 ships joining their fleet yesterday." Paul nodded, zooming in on the latest cluster of red dots. "They think they're being clever, but they're broadcasting their intentions like a billboard in Times Square." He pointed to several spots on the map. "Look here and here. Classic invasion formation, just like we studied in military history." Sandra pulled up her own datapad. "The good news is they're doing exactly what we expected. The bad news is their fleet now outnumbers ours 5-1. Numbers aren't everything," Paul said, allowing himself a small smile. "Remember what Ambassador Matthews reported about their approach to warfare. They only think in straight lines. Direct attack, overwhelming force. They've never had to deal with an enemy who thinks differently." He tapped a few controls, and the hologram shifted to show Earth's defensive positions. Green dots appeared, scattered throughout the sector in what would look like random positions to anyone who hadn't studied Earth's classical military strategies. "Have you finished planting the false intel?" Paul asked. Sandra's tired face broke into a grin. "Oh yes, Operation Paper Dragon is in full swing. We've leaked information suggesting that Earth's main fleet is gathered here." She pointed to a spot far from any human worlds. "We've also made sure they think our colony on New Haven is our most heavily defended position, when actually, it's practically empty. All civilian ships were quietly evacuated last week, and we left just enough forces to make it look occupied. The real fleet is waiting here, here, and here." She pointed to 3 different locations, hidden in the asteroid fields and nebula clouds, just like you suggested. Paul nodded approvingly. The plan was working perfectly so far. The Sixtarians, with their rigid thinking about warfare, would never expect such deception. They believed that a strong military force should be proudly displayed, not hidden away in what they considered cowardly fashion. The command center's door slid open again, and a young officer rushed in. "Sir, we're picking up transmissions from the Sixtarian fleet. They're asking for permission to conduct exercises even closer to our border." "How predictable," Paul said. "They're following the classic intimidation playbook. Show of force, steady encroachment, trying to make us nervous enough to make a mistake." He turned to Sandra. "How are our friends in the council reacting?" Sandra pulled up another report. "Ambassador Matthews has been busy. The Meridians are officially concerned about Sixtarian aggression. The Zatrians have publicly questioned the need for such large exercises. Even the usually neutral Centaurians have issued a statement." "Good. The more diplomatic pressure, the better. But we can't count on it stopping them." Paul expanded the holographic display to show the entire sector. "Have we finished setting up the sensor nets?" "All in place," Sandra confirmed. "Disguised as standard communication relays, just like Earth navies use to hide sonar nets. The Sixtarians' scans show them as regular civilian equipment. They'll never know they're flying into a web until it's too late." Paul was about to respond when alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red warning lights flashed, and the holographic display lit up with new activity. "Report," he barked. The young officer's fingers flew over his console. "Sir, the Sixtarian fleet is moving. They're forming into attack positions." Paul and Sandra exchanged looks. This was happening sooner than expected, but they were ready. "Send the coded message to all fleet positions," Paul ordered. "Authorization code Harrison, Alpha 79. Implement Operation Ghost Fleet." Throughout human space, hidden ships powered up their engines. Defense platforms disguised as mining stations came online. And in the Council of Worlds, Ambassador Matthews would be preparing to play her part in the complex strategy they had developed. "They think they know where our forces are," Paul said quietly. "They think they know our capabilities. They think this will be a simple matter of overwhelming our defenses with superior numbers and technology." He smiled grimly. "They're about to learn what every military student on Earth knows. Assumption is the mother of all mistakes." Sandra was already coordinating with Earth's other defense stations. "All ships report ready. Hidden fleet positions confirmed. Defensive grids online. Operation Paper Dragon intelligence has been confirmed as successfully planted. Sixtarian fleet is moving exactly as predicted. Send word to Ambassador Matthews," Paul ordered. "Tell her to begin Phase 2 of the diplomatic strategy. It's time to show the Council exactly why human military philosophy has survived thousands of years." As the Sixtarian fleet moved closer, Paul thought about all the historical battles he had studied. Hannibal at Cannae, Nelson at Trafalgar, the great space admirals of the early colonial period. Each had faced superior forces. Each had won through superior strategy. "Sir," the young officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the Sixtarian fleet. They're demanding we stand down our forces and prepare for peaceful occupation under their protection. Paul almost laughed. They were even following the classic pattern of trying to justify their aggression as protection. Send them our prepared response. The one about being willing to discuss any concerns through proper diplomatic channels. Yes, sir. Should I also activate the automated distress calls from our decoy positions? Do it. Let's make them think their intimidation is working. The more confident they are in their superior strength, the less they'll look for traps. Sandra looked up from her console. All hidden fleet positions report ready. Our ships in the nebula clouds are in position. Asteroid field squadrons are powered down and invisible to scans. The trap is set. Paul took a deep breath, studying the holographic display one last time. The Zixtarians were arranging their ships in perfect, textbook formation, just as Sun Tzu had written thousands of years ago. When he is united, divide him. Send the final authorization to all fleet commanders, he ordered. Operation Ghost Fleet is now active. May Earth's long history of military thinking prove its worth. The next few hours would determine whether humanity's understanding of warfare would be enough to counter the Zixtarians' superior technology and numbers. But as Paul watched the enemy fleet move exactly where they wanted them to go, he felt confident. After all, humanity had been preparing for moments like this for thousands of years, even before they knew they'd be facing aliens. The Zixtarians were about to learn that war was not just about who had the biggest fleet or the strongest weapons. It was about who better understood the art of warfare itself. And in that arena, humanity had been preparing for this moment for a very, very long time. Colony Fleet Commander Diana Wright watched from the bridge of her ship as the massive Zixtarian fleet appeared out of faster-than-light travel. Their warships filled the space around New Haven Colony like angry hornets, their silver hulls gleaming in the light of the system's twin suns. To anyone watching, it would seem that Earth's furthest colony was about to fall. They took the bait, she said quietly, her ship hidden deep within a dense asteroid field. All units maintain emission control. Let them think they've caught us unprepared. The Zixtarian ships moved in perfect formation, their battle line as straight as an arrow. Diana smiled. They were so predictable, so committed to their idea of proper warfare. They had no idea they were flying into a trap centuries in the making. Enemy fleet is launching their first wave, reported her tactical officer. They're broadcasting their attack on all frequencies. They want everyone to see their victory. Diana nodded. Of course they are. Pride comes before the fall. She watched as the enemy ships began their attack run on the seemingly defenseless colony. All ships, prepare to execute Operation Hornet's Nest. Remember your training. Remember your history. The first wave of Zixtarian ships reached the colony's outer defense platforms. They opened fire with their superior weapons, expecting quick victory. Instead, they found only empty automated stations and holographic projections. Message from the enemy commander, the comm officer announced. They're demanding to know where our fleet is. Let's show them, Diana said with a grim smile. All ships, execute Phase 1. Throughout the asteroid field, human ships began to move, but they didn't emerge in a straight line or proper formation. Instead, they darted out one or two at a time, striking from unexpected angles before disappearing back into the cover of the asteroids. The Zixtarian fleet's perfect formation began to break up as they tried to track multiple small attacks coming from all directions. Their commanders had never faced an enemy that refused to meet them in open battle. Look at them, Diana's second-in-command said. They don't know whether to hold formation or chase our ships. Their entire battle doctrine is falling apart. Diana watched as another squadron of Earth ships emerged from a different part of the asteroid field, launched a precise strike at the enemy's support ships, then vanished again before the Zixtarians could respond. They've never studied guerrilla warfare, she explained. They don't understand that strength isn't just about size. It's about how you use what you have. The battle continued to unfold like a complex dance. The Zixtarian ships, despite their superior technology, couldn't track the human vessels through the dense asteroid field. Their sensors, designed for open space warfare, were confused by the natural interference from mineral-rich rocks. Enemy fleet is dividing into search groups, Tactical reported. They're sending ships into the asteroid field to flush us out. Diana's smile grew wider. Exactly as predicted. All ships, prepare for Phase 2. Execute Operation Thermopylae. As the enemy ships entered the asteroid field, they found themselves in narrow corridors of space, hemmed in by large rocks and debris. Suddenly, their superior numbers became a disadvantage. Their large ships couldn't maneuver effectively in the tight spaces, while the smaller human vessels darted around them like wolves around larger prey. First enemy group has lost contact with their main fleet, Tactical reported. Second group is reporting heavy damage from hidden mine platforms. Third group is, they're retreating back to open space. Diana opened a channel to all Earth ships. Remember what we learned from studying ancient naval warfare. Remember the Battle of Salamis, where a smaller fleet defeated a larger one by choosing the right battlefield. Phase 3 begins now. The human ships launched a coordinated attack, but not against the enemy's strongest ships. Instead, they targeted supply vessels, communication relays, and sensor platforms, just as ancient armies had learned to target supply lines instead of fortified positions. Diana's fleet struck at the support structure that kept the enemy fleet operating. Enemy fleet is showing signs of confusion. The tactical officer reported with excitement. Their formation is completely broken. Individual ship commanders are acting without coordination. Diana nodded. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Send the signal to Admiral Blackwood. Tell her Task Force 7 can begin their approach. From the opposite side of the system, hidden within a dense nebula cloud, another human fleet emerged. While the Zixtarians had been focused on the asteroid field, they had failed to notice the buildup of forces in their rear. The enemy fleet is turning to face the new threat, Tactical reported. They're trying to reform their battle line. Too late, Diana said. They're already caught in the crossfire. All ships, execute final phase. Operation Dragon's Jaw is now active. The human ships in the asteroid field surged forward in a coordinated attack, while Admiral Blackwood's ships pressed from the other side. The Zixtarian fleet, caught between two forces and with their formation in shambles, began to take heavy losses. Enemy commander is signaling, the comm officer shouted. They're requesting a ceasefire. Diana stood from her command chair. Signal all ships to hold position but maintain combat readiness. She turned to her comm officer. Put the enemy commander on screen. The face that appeared was that of a gray-skinned Zixtarian admiral, his silver eyes wide with a mixture of shock and respect. How? He demanded. How did an inferior force defeat our perfect battle formation? Because there's no such thing as a perfect battle formation, Diana replied. Earth learned that lesson thousands of years ago. War isn't about having the biggest ships or the strongest weapons. It's about understanding strategy, adaptation, and using your environment to your advantage. The Zixtarian admiral was quiet for a long moment. Our empire has never suffered such a defeat, he said finally. We request permission to withdraw our forces. Diana nodded. Permission granted, but tell your leaders this. Earth's strength isn't in our technology or our numbers. It's in our understanding of warfare itself. We've spent thousands of years learning these lessons. If you want to understand how we defeated you today, I suggest you start studying. As the Zixtarian fleet retreated, Diana received a message from Earth Command. Other alien fleets had been watching the battle through long-range sensors. The Council of Worlds was in an uproar. Humanity's military philosophy had just proven itself against the galaxy's strongest military power. Send word to Ambassador Matthews, Diana ordered. Tell her that humanity's first lesson in space warfare is complete. I think our alien friends might be ready to learn more about the art of war. As her ships regrouped and began search and rescue operations, Diana thought about all the military historians and strategists whose wisdom had guided this victory. From ancient battles on Earth to this first major space engagement, the principles remained the same. Superior numbers and technology weren't enough. Strategy, adaptability, and understanding were the true keys to victory. Chief Strategist Kevin Pierce stood before the gathered representatives of 7 alien races in the hastily assembled war room on Earth's lunar base. The defeat of the Zixtarian fleet at New Haven had changed everything. Now, former neutral species were rushing to learn from humanity's military wisdom. "The first thing you need to understand," Kevin said, pointing to the holographic display showing the recent battle, "is that warfare isn't just about destroying your enemy. It's about achieving your objectives while denying the enemy theirs." A Meridian representative raised his blue-skinned hand. "But the Zixtarians have already lost many ships. Surely that means victory is assured." Kevin shook his head. "That's the kind of thinking we need to change. The Zixtarians lost ships, yes, but they've already started adapting. Our next confrontation will be harder." He brought up new intelligence reports showing the remaining Zixtarian fleet. Their ships were now scattered in smaller groups, no longer moving in the rigid formations that had made them so vulnerable. "They're learning," said Admiral Mary Blackwood as she entered the room. Her uniform bore the marks of recent combat, and her eyes carried the weariness of command. "But they're still thinking in terms of ships and weapons. They haven't grasped the deeper principles yet." Kevin nodded to Mary and turned back to the aliens. "Which brings us to today's lesson: asymmetric warfare and psychological operations. Admiral Blackwood here just demonstrated one of these principles in the Battle of Sigmavelt." The holographic display shifted to show Mary's recent engagement. Her smaller fleet had faced a Zixtarian force twice its size, but instead of fighting directly, she had done something unexpected. "We didn't target their ships," Mary explained. "We targeted their supply lines, their communication relays, and their sensor networks, like cutting off the legs of a table instead of trying to break the top." The alien representatives watched in fascination as the replay showed Mary's ships striking from multiple directions, disrupting the enemy's ability to coordinate rather than engaging in direct combat. "But this isn't honorable combat," protested a Centaurian observer. "Where is the glory in such tactics?" Kevin smiled patiently. "The most honorable victory is the one that achieves peace with the least bloodshed. Our ancestors learned this lesson through centuries of warfare. Honor isn't about fighting in a certain way. It's about fighting for the right reasons and minimizing unnecessary death." He brought up historical images from Earth's past. "Look at these ancient naval battles. Ships would try to disable enemy vessels by targeting their sails and rudders rather than sinking them. In space, we do the same by targeting sensors and engines instead of destroying whole ships." Mary stepped forward and pointed to another part of the display. "We've also begun using what we call psychological operations. Right now, we're broadcasting messages to Zixtarian crews in their own language, explaining that their leaders have sent them into an unwinnable war." "And this works?" asked a skeptical Zatrian representative. 3 Zixtarian ship captains surrendered yesterday without firing a shot," Kevin replied. "They're beginning to question their leaders' wisdom in starting this war. That's another victory that doesn't require destruction." The room grew quiet as the aliens processed this information. One of them, a young Meridian analyst, was furiously taking notes. "But the Zixtarians still have more ships," the Centaurian pointed out. "They're building more as we speak. How can you win against such numbers?" Kevin brought up a new display showing Earth's defensive network. "Because we're not trying to match them ship for ship. We're using what we call defense in depth. Multiple layers of defenses, each designed to wear down the enemy in different ways." He pointed to various points on the map. Hidden missile platforms in asteroid fields, electronic warfare stations disguised as civilian satellites, sensor nets that look like normal communication relays. The Zixtarians have to defeat all of these before they even reach our main fleet." Mary added, "And each layer teaches us something about their responses, their tactics, their weaknesses. Every engagement makes us stronger, not because we build more ships, but because we learn more about how to fight effectively. A message flashed on the main screen. Kevin read it and smiled. Perfect timing. Our latest psychological operation just succeeded. 3 more Zixtarian ships have defected, bringing with them valuable intelligence about their fleet movements. The alien representatives murmured among themselves. This was so different from the warfare they knew, where victory was simply a matter of having superior weapons and numbers. But what about the Zixtarian home systems? Asked the Meridian analyst. They're heavily fortified. No fleet could penetrate those defenses. That's right, Kevin agreed, which is why we won't try. Instead, we're implementing what we call a containment strategy. Cut off their ability to project power, isolate their forces, and give them time to realize that their way of warfare is obsolete. He brought up a final display showing the current deployment of Earth's forces. We're not trying to conquer the Zixtarians. We're trying to teach them that there's a better way. Every battle, every engagement, every tactical decision is designed to demonstrate the superiority of strategic thinking over brute force. Admiral Blackwood stepped forward again. The Zixtarians started this war thinking it would be simple. Superior technology, superior numbers, straight path to victory. Instead, they're learning what Earth's military leaders have known for thousands of years. War is complex, psychological, and won as much by the mind as by weapons. As the briefing continued, Kevin received another update. The Zixtarian fleet was moving again, but differently this time. They were trying to copy some of Earth's tactics, but without understanding the principles behind them. And that, he told the gathered aliens, is why studying military philosophy is so important. It's not enough to copy tactics. You have to understand why they work, when to use them, and how to adapt them to new situations. The alien representatives were beginning to understand. They had come expecting to learn about weapons and battle formations. Instead, they were learning about strategy, psychology, and the true nature of warfare. As the session ended, Kevin looked at the message about the Zixtarian fleet's movements again. They were learning, adapting, trying to understand. But they were still thinking like Zixtarians, still bound by their old ideas about warfare. Admiral, he said to Mary, I think it's time to implement Operation Mindgame. Let's show them what happens when you understand not just the body of warfare, but its soul. The next phase of the war was about to begin, and with it, a new chapter in the galaxy's understanding of military philosophy. The lessons learned here would shape warfare for generations to come, and humanity would be remembered not for having the strongest weapons, but for having the wisest approach to their use. Commander Eric Martinez stood on the bridge of his flagship, Earth Defense Force Victory, watching as the final pieces of humanity's master strategy fell into place. The last major Zixtarian fleet had taken the bait, pursuing what they thought was a weakened human battle group into the Omega Sector. All ships report ready, his tactical officer said. Allied Meridian and Centaurian forces are in position. The Zatrian observation fleet is standing by to record everything. Eric nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. This battle would either end the war or escalate it to new levels. Everything humanity had learned about warfare over thousands of years had led to this moment. Send the signal to Ambassador Matthews, he ordered. Tell her to begin her address to the Council of Worlds. Light years away in the council chambers, Carol Matthews stood before the gathered representatives of every spacefaring race. The huge screens behind her showed the developing situation in the Omega Sector. Distinguished representatives, she began, you are about to witness the final proof of what humanity has been trying to teach. Watch carefully, for today's battle will demonstrate why philosophy and understanding must guide the use of military power. Back in the Omega Sector, the Zixtarian fleet moved forward in an attack formation. They had learned some lessons from their earlier defeats. Their ships were more spread out, and they had screens of smaller vessels protecting their flanks. They think they've figured us out, Eric said to his crew. They've copied our tactics, but they still don't understand our strategy. Begin Operation Final Lesson. At his command, the seemingly retreating human ships suddenly split into 3 groups, each heading in different directions. The Zixtarian fleet, as predicted, also split up to chase them. Enemy forces dividing exactly as planned, Tactical reported. They think they're following our new doctrine of divided forces. Eric smiled. They've learned the words but not the music. Spring the trap. Throughout the sector, hidden human ships powered up their engines. They had been waiting for days, powered down to avoid detection, placed at precisely calculated points in space. As they came online, the true genius of the plan became clear. The Zixtarian fleet hadn't just been lured into a trap. They had been lured into a 3-dimensional recreation of one of Earth's most famous ancient battles. All ships, execute battle plan Kane, Eric commanded. In the council chambers, Carol explained what was happening. In 216 BC, a general named Hannibal defeated a much larger Roman army by letting them think they were winning, drawing them in, then surrounding them completely. Today we demonstrate that these ancient principles still work, even in the age of space warfare. The human ships began moving in complex patterns, patterns that would have seemed random to anyone who hadn't studied military history. But these movements had been planned centuries ago, on a dusty plain in what was now Italy. The enemy fleet is completely encircled, Tactical reported. They're trying to reform their battle line, but there is no line to form. We're attacking from all directions, all angles, even from above and below. In the council chambers, the alien representatives watched in awe as the human fleet executed maneuvers that seemed to defy conventional space combat doctrine. Ships moved in coordinated groups, each supporting the others, each playing a specific role in the greater strategy. Look at their formation, a Meridian admiral said in wonder. It's like a dance, but every move has purpose. Every ship knows its role in the greater plan. Back on the Victory, Eric received word that the Zixtarian commander was requesting communication. He accepted the call, and the familiar face of Supreme Commander K'tal appeared on screen. How? K'tal demanded. How do you keep defeating us? We copied your tactics. We studied your movements. We have better ships, better weapons. That's exactly why you keep losing, Eric replied calmly. You tried to copy our actions without understanding our philosophy. War isn't about having the best ships or copying tactics. It's about understanding the principles behind those tactics, about knowing when to use them and why they work. He gestured to the battle display. Right now, your fleet is caught in a trap that was designed over 2,000 years ago by a general who never saw a spaceship. The principles he discovered still work because they're based on understanding how battles are really won and lost. In the council chambers, Carol watched as understanding dawned on the faces of the alien representatives. Humanity doesn't claim to be the strongest military power, she told them. We claim to be the wisest. Our strength isn't in our weapons, it's in our understanding. The Zixtarian fleet, completely surrounded and unable to maintain formation, began signaling their surrender. One by one, their ships powered down their weapons. Send word to all commands, Eric ordered. Accept their surrender, but maintain battle readiness. And send a message to Supreme Commander K'tal. Tell him we're ready to discuss terms. K'tal's reply came quickly, but instead of terms of surrender, he had a different request. We wish to learn, he said, his pride clearly wounded but his mind opened. Not just your tactics, but your philosophy. We see now that this is what makes you truly strong. In the council chambers, Carol smiled as she made her final address. The Galactic Council has witnessed today not just a victory of ships and weapons, but a victory of wisdom and understanding. Earth proposes the establishment of a galactic military academy, where all races can learn not just how to fight, but when to fight, why to fight, and most importantly, how to win peace. The vote was unanimous. Even the Zixtarian representative, newly arrived from their home world, voted in favor. Back on the Victory, Eric looked out at the powered-down Zixtarian ships. now surrounded by human vessels that had once been considered technologically inferior. "Send word to Earth," he ordered. "Tell them that Operation Final Lesson is complete. The galaxy is ready to learn." As the message was sent, he thought about all the military philosophers, strategists, and teachers whose wisdom had guided humanity to this moment. Sun Tzu, Clausewitz, Thucydides, men who had lived and died thousands of years ago, never knowing that their insights would one day help humanity teach the stars themselves about the true nature of warfare. The war was over, but the real victory wasn't the defeat of the Sixtarian fleet. The real victory was the change in how the galaxy understood warfare. From this day forward, military power would be guided by philosophy, strategy, and wisdom, not just technology and numbers. As Earth prepared to share its military wisdom with the galaxy, Eric knew that this was just the beginning. The lessons learned here would echo through the stars for generations to come, ensuring that future conflicts would be fought with wisdom and understanding, not just force. The Council of Worlds had learned that human space war philosophy truly was supreme, not because it taught the best way to fight, but because it taught the best way to think about fighting. And in the end, that made all the difference.